let's go ahead and get started. And this is a follow-up discussion to the meeting we had last week. I provided the introduction to Partner Engagement Manager, some of the business challenges and some of the value propositions around the solution, and just kind of a high-level review of some of the features and functions of Partner Engagement Manager. And Igmar and I exchanged some emails that followed that presentation, and I think we all mutually agreed that the next step would be to do a deeper dive into Partner Engagement Manager, including actually getting to see some of the product. You saw some of the screenshots, but actually to see the product in action. So that's our focus for today, and we are extremely fortunate to have a member of the offering management team on this call with us, and I'll let you introduce yourself, Greg. But Greg is there's no one that knows more about Partner Engagement Manager than he does. He's been involved with the product since its inception, so we're very fortunate to get his time today. And with that, Greg, I didn't really have any other setup, so I'm going to quickly turn it over to you, and if you have some slides that you want to share, or go into some of the product demo videos that you wanted to use, I'll defer to you after you introduce yourself on where you want to take the conversation.
All right, great.
You're sharing.
Yes, thanks, Dirk, and
thank you.
Just to go through a few things. As Dirk had mentioned, I'm an offering manager with IBM Sterling. As part of this, I manage our Partner Engagement Manager solution. And as Dirk had mentioned, I think you've started going through the solution a bit. So I'm going to take a few minutes and go through a few slides. We can definitely move through these in case some of these are going to be a bit of a duplicate of what you've seen, and then I'm going to then walk through a demo of the solution. It's pre-recorded at this point, but I'll stop and start this as we go through it and provide some comments as we go through. But you'll be able to see the product itself in action. So in general, with Partner Engagement Manager, I think from its inception, this is something that we put together to provide for self-service onboarding and management of the vast array of partners that a customer within finance what we call partners, which could be customers, could be suppliers. Really depending on the sponsor that's working within this. So it's rather than what as we started talking to our customers, it became very evident that that even today there were quite a few of them that were doing a lot of the onboarding and managing of partners via spreadsheets, via Word documents, whatever it might be. And there was a lot of manual efforts that were going into this. So we set out to put together a solution that would integrate with Sterling Vault Gateway to start with. We have plans to integrate into other areas, but we started out very early in focusing also on this being enabled through RESTful APIs. We put together a broadcast type of a system that would allow you to onboard a bunch of customers all at one time. We also put out a screen that would allow for a general dashboard that you could track that particular onboarding process, and really isolate and focus on those partners that may be struggling. You may see on this particular slide, you'll see color coding of over where you're seeing a blue, red, and green. This is where we're really tracking the progress of partners to see where they're at, where they may be at within a workflow. to see, if they're blue, they're complete. That's somebody that you wouldn't need to focus on. Green, they're still on schedule. And then somebody that's red is going to be somebody that needs a bit more help. So one of the things with Partner Engagement Manager is that it's going to provide assistance, but it's not necessarily going to provide everything that's going to not require someone to follow up to still have to follow up with the partners. If a partner is having some issues, you may need to provide updates to that partner through, there's ways you can do it within the portal to send an alert out to the partner. You'll have contact information that you can pick up the phone and talk to them if need be. But in essence, what it allows you to do is to really focus maybe in those problem areas where if you have, say, 500 partners you're trying to bring on board, and say 25 of them are struggling, you can focus on that group. So automate a lot of it and then deal with that person-to-person contact that you may still have to have for those particular customers. I'm just going to go ahead and move on. In general, on the architecture that we have for Partner Engagement Manager, what we do is that while we have a portal that is going to provide the dashboard, it's going to be where the workflows are created, and it's going to be what the partners and the general users are going to be accessing. The portal is just one part of what we provide. In addition to the portal, then we have a centralized partner repository. This is where within the partner repository, that's where the technical data may be stored. So if I'm dealing with Sterling File Gateway and I'm dealing with communication protocols, there's quite a bit of detail that I need to be able to track for a particular partner, so that they'll understand, or so that this can be passed along into Sterling File Gateway, and that partner can then conduct training. So that is where we're going to store that data within the partner repository, and then we also then have a partner provisioner, which allows you to be able to communicate with solutions like IBM Sterling File Gateway to really set up, test, and manage those partners. These are all, each of these components are connected together via RESTful APIs. So within the PEM portal, it's passing the data into the partner repository where it's stored. That's done via RESTful API. And then within the partner provisioner, it will use RESTful APIs when I'm going to be communicating with Sterling File Gateway to pull the information out of the partner repository and push it along to into the File Gateway. Each one of these has an interface to it so that someone in IT support, for instance, can have administrative access into the provisioner or the repository. But through your line of business people, your partners, those folks are going to be able to get access into the portal. And that's what they're really going to be able to see going forward. Some of the most common use cases that we have for PEM are going to be the new partner. Obviously, we have an onboarding solution. That onboarding solution is going to be able to onboard new partners. That's where you're going to be able to compress that time to value. Put together a workflow that can be reviewed by your marketing team, by your legal team, by your finance team, so that you can all agree to the particular process that's going to be and what's going to be presented to a customer, to a supplier. So you provide a good standard way that everybody is going to be treated, and so that can then be converted into a self-service way of doing it. So the partner themselves can not only provide that can not only respond to the workflow, but in some cases those workflows can also be set up to be self-service, where the partner themselves could initiate something, so that if you create something that within PEM where it's something that you're going to push out to them, but in some cases you're also going to want them on occasion if something changes within their organization, that you want them to also be able to complete a particular process. You can establish some of those processes to be what we call self-service and initiated by the partner. In addition to being able to just onboard those partners, we also have what we call continual touch. And the continual touch is where we get into contact recertification. What we found is when we talk to our customers is that oftentimes the contact info can become stale. And so what we'll do with contact recertification is allow you to be able to create an activity, and in that activity, basically, it's a note out to your partners saying, this is the information we have available for you right now. Is it still up to date? And do that every 6 months. Do that once a year. Do it in whatever frequency makes the most sense. And that contact recertification then makes sure that the next time you need to be able to communicate with those partners, that you don't have to spend additional time trying to figure out who the right contacts are. When I've talked to customers about their processes, one of the things that prior to PEM that they would always have to do is set aside 60, 90 days to contact their line of business folks or the people that would have the contact info available to them, and validate that the contact info was still up to date. Another key one with continual touch is going to be refresh of key certificates. Especially within Sterling Cloud Gateway, when you're doing onboarding, one of the things we're able to do is collect the expiration date for a cert. And those certs, while they may expire, say, every 2 years, they're going to expire for every single partner on different days, possibly. So PEM will store that expiration date, and then we'll automatically kick off a process prior to when that cert is going to be expiring, and ask that partner to now go in, upload the new cert, and we'll have it tested within SFG so that they can move forward. We've heard from a lot of customers that this is really helping them to significantly reduce an effort that they might have been doing through spreadsheets, through sending calendar notifications a couple of years out for a partner. So something is done on a very manual basis. And then lastly, we have what we call migration. Within migration, this is where if I'm moving a bunch of partners, say from different file transfer systems over to Global Mailbox, this would be an opportunity where I can go in and take that information from those partners. And while ideally what would be great is if I could be able to take all of that info and then just push it into the other solution with the click of a button. Realistically, what you have to do is you need to involve your partners. If for nothing else, I need to provide them with a new IP address. So that interaction that you need to have with those partners can be done at certain levels. Within PEM, we have a very flexible workflow where a lot of steps can be done within the sponsor organization, and a lot of the steps can then happen also on the partner side. So depending on how much interaction you need to have with a partner, there's a lot that you could do internally, but PEM allows you to really sort of organize that migration, those bigger efforts to get them to move over and substantially reduce the amount of time it's going to take to do that migration. I'll stop for a minute and see if there's any questions. Has Dirk already covered this? If so, let me know, and I'll go ahead and speed up things a bit and get a little bit more into some of the technical details.
Yeah, we did review some of that. We reviewed this chart at a higher level, Greg, with some of the use cases. So we touched on it.
Okay, so I'll pass by this particular use case that we had just in general. This is something where the only one thing I wanted to point out here on this particular use case where we created a simplified onboarding solution was that within the workflows, you can also go through and establish what we call custom roles. Those custom roles and responsibilities that might be in place. You could have a role for legal, you could have a role for say the infrastructure team that might set up YP whitelisting. You could set up a role for your finance team if they need to do any type of approvals, et cetera. So there's all kinds of different roles that can be put into place. And as you go through the steps within a workflow, you could designate a certain group of people that are going to then perform that. And then once you're in PEM, you can assign those particular people to particular roles. So it can be very powerful as you work through this to really engage a larger part of your organization to deal with this. From a general features and activity monitoring, this is where we get into the not only the as I had mentioned before, target where the support is going to be needed. That's where how we do that is when you're creating a workflow, you can set a certain time frame, let's say a day for a particular step to be completed, and maybe you're looking for something to be done within a 60-day time frame. You may have, say, 15 days worth of slack in there, but you can, as PEM goes through, it'll see that, okay, I should be at by this time. It's going to take me 45 days to get through here. If I haven't started by day 16, I'm going to go from green to red now at this point. And going to red, they're able to catch up, but it's something where we're able to be able to track that and make sure that you again are able to focus on who may be a little bit more behind. Also within the we have a partner repository that has all of the information that would be collected. We also do on the portal provide a centralized repository, and that centralized repository is at least going to provide the contact details. What it also provides as well is it's going to be adding in the ability for what we call attributes, so that let's say, for instance, I wanted to set up an attribute to focus on customers in a particular region. I may want to focus on customers that are using a particular protocol or a particular product. Let's say, for instance, in banking, I've got folks that are using some of my treasury products, and other ones are using loans. Another group is using credit or whatever it might be. In each one of those areas with the particular products that you might have in place, you can establish an attribute and then assign that to those particular partners. Either assign it on a manual basis, or you can assign it within the workflow based on particular answers that they're going to be providing. You'll be able to create somewhat of a subset of users that when you're going to roll this out to them, based on those particular workflows, you can say, okay, I want to get to people that are located in the South that are using treasury solutions, and that's something that I can really narrow that down to a small subset of users. I think I sort of touched a little bit on this on this one, which is the Continual Touch. This is where the partners are looking to manage those certificates. As I had mentioned, this is where I'm going to be, tracking the expiration date, and then I'll send out contact validation requests to make sure that I got the right info for that, but then also set up those automated notices. The way we set that up within PEM, there is a setting within there that I can go in and set the amount of time, 30 days, 60 days, whatever is going to make the most sense. We'll send out we'll kick off the process to the partner, contact them, tell them that there's a certificate that's going to be expiring, ask them to upload it. We'll take that, once they've uploaded that file, that certificate will get stored in the partner repository, and the provisioner now will then pick up, push it into Sterling File Gateway, and run a business process so that the Sterling File Gateway is then also able to validate that the certificate is working properly, and then we'll kick that back. If something happens and it doesn't go wrong, you'll get an error message, and then you'll be alerted to that. But in essence, allows you to be able to automate that process again, and make sure that the partner is, let's say the partner isn't responding. Again, just like in the previous ones, if it goes red, you're going to be notified of that. So you'll see that that partner needs to move things along. So going away from really having to track that via spreadsheets and allow PEM to be able to be that automated way of doing this. From an activity and design perspective, we provide a drag and drop type of an interface. The drag and drop interface not only allows us to be able to set up these workflows, but then also there's a Dialog Designer. So that Dialog Designer is going to be what's going to be showing up on the screen. It can be very customized, and you can and provide a presentation to the partner on the screen that you'll be able to start with. You'll be able to start with certain predefined activities that are available. You could then go in and customize it to your particular needs, to your particular look and feel. I mentioned before that PEM communicates via RESTful APIs. When we first started out with this, REST was not necessarily as prevalent as it is today. This is something that as we started talking to a lot of our IT organizations, they or customers within that initially, they had heard of it, but they really didn't know much about it. Now today, when we talk about REST, everybody knows what that is. And we provided that integration, not only within PEM have we created hundreds of different RESTful API calls, or 100 different RESTful APIs, but also within Sterling File Gateway, there's been a myriad of RESTful APIs also created within that as well. There are some RESTful APIs created within B2BI. However, that we're also looking to expand that. So, in general, if a solution supports REST, you can create an activity within PEM to be able to collect data and push it into that particular backend system. And the way that we do that is just in general, when I'm creating an API, I've got a simple way to be able to configure APIs with a very simple screen. We'll go into that, but then also be able to go through and do one-click mapping for this. So while we've pre-built a lot of this out, you've got easy ways of being able to update these particular maps. I wanted to step real quick on the different deployment options that are available for PEM. Today we have a couple of SaaS options. You can PEM on cloud is going to be something where it's hosted and managed by IBM, so a pure type of SaaS solution. It's hosted in a multi-tenant environment, and then we're providing monthly releases with that. We also then have another option where it can be another SaaS option where it can be hosted behind your firewall. And that's what we've done is back in, I think, 2016, we introduced PEM via Docker containers. Basically the Docker the customer provides the environment for this, and then we'll put the Docker container in there. It is still, in this one, it's still a SaaS subscription. We still provide monthly releases, but the customer then has to be able to upgrade at least every 120 days. And there's what we call a subscription monitor where it will check on a nightly basis just to make sure that the subscription is still valid and it hasn't expired. So it is. So in this option, there's a couple of extra steps that even though it's behind the firewall, it still is treated like SaaS. And then in December of last year, we introduced PEM as software. So PEM as software, just like the local feature, it is also delivered via a Docker container. It's something that you can host behind your firewall or in your selected data center. So any of the discussions you've been having possibly so far around how we're containerizing the Sterling File Gateway, B2BI, Connect Direct, all of those moves to a private cloud where it's all managed within a Docker container. That's PEM was already there and within a container. And the software license, and we've now updated it so that it now can be offered as a software license, either in a monthly or perpetual license. And then we're going to be providing quarterly releases for this. And it is something that's downloaded through Passport Advantage. So rather than having to upgrade every 120 days, we still encourage customers to upgrade on a very frequent basis, but they're not forced to. There is no connection to a subscription monitor anymore with PEMA software as well. And we're in the process also of upgrading the current underlying OS that we have to the Red Hat UBI. And as part of that, also we're working through making sure that that's going to be Red Hat OpenShift certified. So, within that process, as you've heard of other solutions within our B2B collaboration portfolio, PEM is also going to be, moving down that path of being able to be, fully on the Red Hat OpenShift certification to go, and then being able to be offered in that private cloud option, as well as we've got the hosted cloud option as well. With that, in general, I think I can step back at this point, just a few things from a business value standpoint, because we're dealing with manual processes. We're able to really dramatically reduce onboarding time by like 75%. It's because PEM is going to be always on. We're reducing a lot of that white space. Keeping partner contact information up to date really can save weeks and months for that. And it really can help to reduce some of the work that the IT groups within customer organizations. So when you're talking to customers, oftentimes if they have people that have admin rights into Sterling File Gateway, that's going to be a very small group of people that oftentimes are overwhelmed. By introducing in PEM that is now providing an interface and then communicating via RESTful APIs, that you can really control who the one source that's really going to be communicating with SFG, and expand out those the people that normally would have been able to get access to that. Okay, with that, I'm gonna step over. If there are any questions, I'll step over and jump into a bit of the presentation. I'm sorry, a bit of the demo. Any questions before I move on?
I think if you continue with the demo, there's a few things that in terms of the Dialog Designer and the provisioning via the APIs that I'm curious about. But I think start off with the demo, and then when we reach those two aspects, I'll jump in if you're not answering my questions already while busy with it.
Okay. All right. So
one question. Sorry, you might have touched on it. I might have missed. You mentioned a couple of times that it integrates with SFG. Does that mean that the customer needs SFG to be able to run PEM, or can it be run as a separate solution without SFG?
PEM can be run as a separate solution. It is what we've done is within SFG is we've developed predefined activities or predefined workflows, so you can onboard via the multiple different types of protocols. But we actually have customers that we have a couple of customers that are using a competitive file transfer product that have asked that whether or not they could use PEM to do the onboarding into that competitive product. While there's a lot of work that they would have to do, it is certainly possible to be able to do that. A lot of it's really going to depend on the targeted solution and how much, in a way, that they have RESTful APIs in place. Because that's the one thing that PEM is going to be a lot more dependent on, is it's going to be wanting to communicate via REST APIs. Now, there are options where I could go in, create an activity, do an HTTP post over and run a business process, for instance, within B2BI, if there isn't a REST API available. But the most efficient, the most, I guess, way of doing it is certainly to do that communication back and forth via REST. but otherwise, those targeted systems, we have the workflow that we have in place can communicate, can kick those different options off. So there really isn't a limitation from that standpoint.
Thanks. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Mm-hmm. Okay, so as we get started, first and foremost, there's a you'll notice a screen that on this particular screen, this is just the login that's available both for the admin as well as the partners. In this case, I'm going to be logging in as Scott at Cash Bank, which is going to be the sponsor organization. So I use the term sponsor organization somewhat to designate. Oftentimes that may end up being, if you're in the financial institution, it may be a customer that I'm working with, and that customer then has customers. So I use the term sponsors and partners just to provide a view that you're going to be if you're going to be selling this or putting it together, you're going to be implementing it for the sponsor. Their partners could be a customer if it's in the for the financial institutions, for instance, or depending on where you're at in the supply chain, or it could be for suppliers. Suppliers, if I'm looking to onboard suppliers, this is also, those suppliers are called partners. So I just wanted to provide a real quick clarification on that. So in this case, with Scott, I've logged them in. I've logged in. I'm able to look at the different activities that are currently now available. That's the home screen that I'm going to be able to see. I've got a directory, and in that directory, when I click on that directory, it's going to provide me with a view of the different partners that are available to me. These you'll see partners, users, roles, and divisions. So partners, in this case, I've got a view of the different types of partners that are available. I can filter them based on their different roles. Users are going to be people within a partner organization. So one of the things within PEM that I can do is that I can invite one partner. That partner will be that administrator for that particular company, and then that partner administrator can invite as many people as they want within their organization. So it's very common for a partner to say maybe have a half a dozen, so 5 or 6 users that might be performing particular steps throughout this. So PEM is focused on its billing is focused on that partner organization. So at any time we're asked how many partners, it's really how many companies, because within that each partner can have multiple users to go with it. In addition to the partners, when I look at the view here, I'm going to be able to see the different the different information that's available. We store a unique key for the partner, so that because company name may not be unique, or the given name and the surname may not be unique, etc. But we'll store a lot of that information for them, so you'll be able to see the general organization. They'll be able to see who the administrators, who is at the top level, what users that possibly might be there, the different attributes that what I talked about, where those attributes are going to be something that I can go in and assign these within that area as well. Those attributes are, as I had mentioned, are ways to really take your entire partner community and really put them into different buckets. So really to provide somewhat of a subset. In addition to this, so I've got the directory. Under this, I've also got the different activities. These activities, as a sponsor admin, I've got the ability to go in and create these activities. So you'll see definitions, templates, the monitoring of my activities. The definitions are going to be the workflows. If I'm going to go and I'm going to create a workflow, this workflow then can be run many times as a campaign. Templates are going to be where if I'm going to be working with a particular, say a particular type of a screen, I may want to create a template of that screen that I can reuse over and over again. So it's all part of creating those particular activity definitions. You'll notice that I've got some that are in a state where I can do it as a mark as final because they're currently in a draft state, and other ones that are listed as being rolled out. These are the ones that are final. There's the ones that are final are going to be the ones that I'm sorry, the ones that are listed as rollout are going to be the ones that in that final state I can now push that out to my partners. If I click on the of any of these options as part of this, I'll click on, as I click on one, it'll bring up some of the details that I can go through and edit this. Excuse me. So as we walk through this, I'll bring up one of those particular activities. But before I do that, the other area that I just wanted to highlight was going to be the settings. So in the settings, this is where, again, the attributes are able to be included. I've got an API configuration. This would be where when I'm going to be communicating via these RESTful APIs, there are going to be certain connection details that have to be included. The host name, the host, the port, whether or not I'm going to be using username and password authentication, or whether or not I'm going to be using token authentication. And in general, this is where you'll notice here I can create a name for it, what kind of protocol I'm going to be using, the host, the port, and as I mentioned before, either authenticated with username and password, or be also authenticated via token. The scheduler configuration, as I talked about that certificate update, this is where I'm able to go in at this point and go and select to enable my ability to update certificates, and I can set a time frame on the number of days that I might want to include there as part of this. So I'm gonna. So after this, I'll jump out of the after I've updated any information here. Looking at this particular view, I'm going to jump out here.
Greg, just quickly,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of what you've described now as a definition, so that would be a onboarding or keeping in touch type of action that needs to be fulfilled. And that will contain, as you showed now, the APIs, that endpoint that PIM needs to talk to do the provisioning. So I presume that each definition will then have its own flow and its own dialogues and APIs. So if a user from a partner organization, they know, okay, they want to push through a payroll file to the other organization that's using PIM, they'll do a specific trigger, a specific definition for that. And if they need to order stock and it's a file that needs to be pushed through, there will be a definition for that, because the systems at the back that consume these files, some might be running under Sterling File Gateway, some of them might just be a normal SFTP endpoint, but with the APIs it can access some configuration that writes to a DB or just does that configuration. I just want to understand that my definition of a definition is that one complete action is inside one of those definitions.
Yes, exactly. So when we talk about definitions, what we're speaking about is a workflow. So that activity definition or the activity workflow That activity workflow could be something as simple as I'm going to create I'm going to create a screen, and on that screen I'm going to say, "Hello, how are you doing?" And that could be that definition, or that could be a particular activity, to the point of I could do a complete onboarding where I'm having the partner go through, provide their contact details, provide the different protocol details, go through, test that particular protocol, and maybe set up a firewall, etc. So any of those can be set up at any type of a level within a workflow. As I create an API, so I've set up a particular API. I'll need to set up those particular endpoints, so that if I call a REST API, I need to be able to know where to send it to, and that's where the partner provisioner comes in. So while I've got the details for it, when I call that RESTful API, the target may be that SFG instance, or it could be that other backend system that I'm going to be able to move to. And in each one of those, you can have multiple different types of workflows based on what you want to do. Break them down to something very small. So maybe in one, I'm only doing a connection to SFG and updating that. And another one, I'm going to expand it out and also do connect to other systems as well. It really is, very flexible from that standpoint.
Is it possible to, in one workflow, have connections out to more than one API endpoint?
Yes.
Okay, great stuff. All right, now I'm happy with that.
Okay. Yeah. So while we were talking, I just really quickly we jumped in, logged in as a partner. In this case, you'll notice up here in the upper right-hand corner that I've now listed as a test partner. You also notice that there's a few others items. There are a few less items on here. I can still see a directory, and in that directory, I'm not going to be able to see everybody. I'm just going to be able to see in the directory in this case, if I'm a sponsor, if I'm a partner administrator, I can be able to see the different users that are within my organization. At the sponsor admin level, I'm going to be able to see everybody. But at the partner level, I can also view who's in my directory. And that could be very important because as a partner admin, if I don't have a custom role in place to be able to push something out to be able to automatically push out a step or any part of the workflow to a particular user, I've also got that ability to assign that to someone. And I'll show you that real quick as we look at this. So in this case, you've got the certificate update. You'll notice as part of this, actually, let me just jump past this one, where I'm providing them with this. You'll notice here under this view that in each step that goes along, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark whoever that owner was for that particular step. I may have 25 steps in a particular process. In this case, I've only got 3, but it's in each one of those steps, you may have a different user. And the way the PEM works on its workflow is that we've made it very flexible to allow both a partner to be able to perform functions, but then also in some cases, if a partner is struggling, a sponsor, someone with admin privileges at the sponsor level could go in and act on behalf of the partner. Let's say the partner is just not sure how to answer particular questions. You're on the phone with them. They say, okay, here's what I, as you're prompting them through that, rather than hanging up the phone with them, having that partner fill that information in, you as the sponsor admin could go in and make those updates for the partner. But when that step is completed, we'll mark that step as now showing that as the sponsor did it. So instead of seeing test partner, I may see Scotta Cash Bank completed a particular step. So something within the process that's completely auditable. So if later on the partner comes back and says, I didn't fill that information in, you could go back and say, oh yeah, you're right, Scott did this particular step for you. So provides complete automation from that standpoint. In addition to anything that's going to be auditable on these particular screens, because we'll keep track of each particular step that's completed. We also have can provide you access to log files. So log files, if it's going to be something on the software side, you're going to be able to use whatever log file management solution you might have that you're currently already using for your other applications. If it is something that's going to be hosted or managed by IBM, we're also now using Logstash as a way, an interface to be able to view log files. It's very important for, in the multi-tenant environment, we're able to securely provide log files to those individual users. So you can get down to the level that you need to get to be able to see what's happening. Obviously, 99.9% of the time, I'm really only going to need to see what's going to be on the interface as far as tracking who's done what. But if I need to get down to a particular level to see who accessed the database, whatever, I can go and dig through the particular log files to see exactly what's happened. So, everything that's performed within PEM can be tracked. Okay. So as part of this, the first step, I just clicked on an introduction. I completed a step here by being able to view that particular introduction. As soon as I now get to the next step, and this is where I'm going to be able to upload a new certificate. It's going to tell me, it's going to provide the certificate information that is going to need to be provided. And then I'm going to go in here and select to upload a particular SSL certificate. Now I can do this a couple of different ways. I can go in here in this case and just pull the cert from my particular PC or server, whatever that I have. Upload that particular certificate, and when I click finish, it will then have uploaded that certificate, put that into the repository, and then we'll start kicking off processes within the provisioner. Now, in this particular case, you're going to notice that it says all the information has been collected. Now, this information will be configured into our file transmission system. And once it's successfully completed, you'll get a confirmation email. So what we do within the process now is, they'll click finish, and then the details will happen behind the scenes. This is where the partner provisioner will come in, pull the information from the partner repository, push business process into open up the business process within Sterling File Gateway to accept the certificate. We'll then run a business process within Sterling File Gateway to test that certificate to make sure that it's valid. And then once we got that back, that it's a valid certificate, we'll then indicate that work's complete, and the partner will get an email notification that they're now done. The one thing here is that this particular view that you're seeing, the activity overview, is also something that the sponsor admin will see as well. So those views into that particular activity is something that the sponsor admin will see that activity has been kicked off, that the partner is working their way through it, and without them having to initiate anything. So I'm going to log back into Scott at Cash Bank to provide for that. So in this view, you'll see that I've got this particular activity where I can see the cert update that was done. I can view the details on that. It's going to show that it's going to show in this particular status that I'm able to provide that to be able to see that particular one was just completed. The other thing that we're able to do as well is this is where I can not only can do an upload via broadcast where I can send it out to multiple different partners. But the other thing I'm also able to do is kick off a process for a particular individual. So what we've, so while initially PEM was provided in a broadcast type of a model, we also then found that on occasion I need to just roll out a particular activity to one particular user. So I can go into the directory, as I particularly showed here, provide that, select that particular user, and then I'll get a listing of the different types of activities that are going to be available. So in this case, I've got a different view of the activities. I'm going to select one here, the Partner Certificate Update V2. Put in a name for this. And this is where, while I was able to do a cert update, where the partner was able to have something kicked off, excuse me, where the partner was able to have something kicked off, I can also kick off a cert update as well. So in this particular case, I've gone in, kicked off a process for that particular user, and completed that particular work. So you notice here in this particular view, well, actually, I think we're done at this point. So the one thing I didn't get to cover within this particular view is probably going to be a little bit more on the workflow side of things. So again, to talk about it, to talk about the workflow, this is where we'll provide a view, a drag and drop view into that particular flow. And let me see if I can sort of go back to that particular screen. So again, just to possibly see this in a little bit more of a, oops. To see this in a little bit more of an easier view. This is where each one of these particular tasks that I might have within a workflow, I can have a start task. I can establish partner tasks, so something where normally the partner would complete that particular step. There could be a sponsor task. That's going to be something where only someone within the sponsor organization is going to be able to complete it. Now, as I mentioned, a sponsor administrator can step in for a partner and complete a step, but the partner can't turn around and complete anything for a sponsor user. In this particular case, we've got approval tasks in place. So any place along the workflow, if you wanted to stop for a minute and say, okay, before this gets provisioned over into SFG or before it gets provisioned in the backend system, I want to have somebody at an admin level take a look at this and make sure everything looks okay before I click that button. I can set that approval task in place. That approval task, if something's wrong, I can click to either accept it or reject it. If I click to reject it, it'll push it back over into the back to the partner, and I can designate what step they need to start start from. So approval steps in place. A lot of our customers will add some approval steps in place because you just want to make sure that while everything should be automated, they still want to make sure that that the people are really able to complete this, and it's completed correctly. We got system tasks. These system tasks are going to be a lot of what you might have with the partner provisioner. There, where something is happening, where between the partner provisioner and the partner repository, where it's communicating back and forth. But it isn't necessarily something that has to show up. Also, doing the cert updates, being able to check against that expiration date, that would be a system task. So what we do is with each one of these is that we'll set up that particular dialogue or set up the flow as part of this. Within the flows, we can also do what we call conditional branching. Conditional branching will allow you to say, based on an answer that was provided on step 1, I will then be able to now take them down a separate path. So for instance, if I've selected SFTP push as one option versus SFTP pull, I'll be taken down a particular path. And that will also, based on the fact that I've selected a particular protocol, that's where you've got this attribute task in place in here, where I can automatically assign an attribute. So I selected SFTP, okay, let me, based on this partner, now that they've selected that, add the SFTP attribute to that partner's view so that we're able to automatically assign a lot of those attributes based on questions that they might answer. And for each one of these particular steps that you might see along the way, there's then a dialogue flow that's going to be in place. And that dialogue is where, again, really more of a drag and drop. I'm able to put in the language that you saw that when I brought up a particular screen. It's just basically a language that I'm able to type in, either on a single line or multiple lines. Put in different fields that I can ask the partner to fill in. I could use regular expressions as a way to be able to validate, so I can go at a field level and provide validations. I'm also able to go in and provide dynamic tables. So let's say, for instance, I need to be able to present on the screen. If I'm going to present some options to a customer, if I've got maybe within what I have for their records, maybe they have 15 different, something stored where I've got 15 different items that are available to them, and another one I've only got 2. I'm able to create those tables so that I'll display what information I have for them thus far and ask them to go through and provide updates to that. So there's a lot of flexibility around the workflows. This particular workflow tool, again, is something that is then stored as an XML file that then can be exported and then imported. So if I wanted to make some changes to the XML file, I can make those changes, then import those back in. Also, it's that can be very useful if I'm possibly creating something in a test system where I'm completing it. I can export the activity that I had in the test system and then import that into the production system for additional testing. With that, I'll stop, see if there's any questions as I run through that. Anything else that might have come up. Okay.
Just quickly there on the testing steps that was now built into this example flow.
Mm-hmm.
What is sort of the out-of-the-box testing capability? Obviously, one of the things is just checking if the connection comes up between 2 endpoints. Is there something out of the box for validating file schemas that if the customer says, I'm going to send you a JSON file, but he uploads an example file and it's an XML, that you can kick it out?
Yeah. So when it comes to field level, the field level validation, we can certainly go through and if someone's going to upload a file, we can see whether or not the file itself is. We're not going to be able to go into the content and see whether or not it's a valid file. But what we could do is but there certainly could be a regular expression in place that says, okay, based on what's being uploaded, the file name, if the file name is showing up as, should be showing up as a JSON file, and it's showing up as with a file name that is different from that, then we can kick that back out. So we'll do validation at that name level, but we won't necessarily do content level validation. Also, when it comes to filling in the information, obviously, if someone's going to be with regular expression, you can get as customized, I guess, in a sense as you want here. So, you know, if someone's going to be putting something in it, let's say it's a host name, the host name, the IP address has to be in this particular format. And based on what someone's filled in, if they don't put it in that particular format, we're going to be able to kick it back out and say it's not in the right format. Now, we won't be able to validate that it's the right IP address until possibly later on in the process, where either through an approval step that someone looks at and says, oh, that just doesn't look right, or if it does sort of look right, that's still something that we can also do it through a validation within SFG. When we do the connectivity test, if they put in the wrong IP address, then it'll kick it back out, and we'll know that there was an error, and then that partner then will then be pushed back through and say, hey, you put in the wrong IP address. Let's go in and make this change.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Hey, Greg, it's Dirk.
Yep.
I have just one. TrustLink is a longtime partner and has a lot of experience with File Gateway, so they're clearly interested in potentially introducing Partner Engagement Manager into the South African customer base. From your experience and knowing that we've got an experienced File Gateway practice at TrustLink, what are from a services perspective, where would the product, what services efforts would typically be required for a fairly standard, like an SFTP flows that would be going through PIM? Can you just kind of characterize how much customization?
Okay. Well, sure. One of the things that we've done, at least with SFG, is that you know, and some of the things maybe I didn't step through as much, is that for instance, PEM today, also within the partner repository, we provide a way to be able to store code list. So the code list as a standard day, as I understand within SFG, they're maybe not as very easy to really be able to get to. So PEM, in a sense, provides an easier way to do searching. Now, one of the things we're also looking at with searching today within code list today, for instance, when I do a search, I'm going to do a search on just one field. However, we are in the process of also expanding that to provide searchability on all the different columns that might be in a code list, up to, I think it's 11 different columns that I could have within a code list file. So that's an example of something where for SFG, we're pushing out and providing that code list, something that additionally is normally happening within each SFG instance. We also provide, and to go back to Dirk's question, the predefined activities, we've covered the major protocols, SFTP, FTP, SFTP, Connect Direct, and we also have the MyFile Gateway as an option as well. So so the different protocols that are out there, we've got an activity, a predefined activity that's available. Now, that predefined activity is going to be based on the standard, what's out of the box within SFG. So if I'm just dealing with that, I could really set up an activity within, certainly within less than a day, probably within an hour or so, if the customer is using just that. If, however, most customers are using some type of a custom protocol, and so with that, it's going to take a little bit more time to really understand and design the process. I would say typically you're probably looking at, from design to finish, it could be upwards of 90 days sometime, but depending on the project too, we could see a project that would go out multiple months. Certainly because the customer in some cases may have other processes that they may be trying to run through other than just doing, say, just doing onboarding. But I think it's very, from a general standpoint, I'm going to usually, within the process, I'm going to sit down with the customer, design their workflow, understand what they're doing. So, if before I can try to automate something, I need to understand, what the manual process is. See where I can provide some recommendations on how, rather than maybe duplicating their manual process, possibly go in and provide them with best practices that we could possibly use. And then went from the design to building that out. Again, working with the customer as they're going through, possibly presenting some screens to them, getting them to review them along the way, and then getting them into a testing phase. All of that, again, is something that can happen, getting them configured and everything within, say, that 60 to 90-day time frame. But it could certainly be a lot more, or it could be slightly less if the customer is, again, just using maybe some things are just standard predefined out of the box.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I know we are over our allotted time. And let me first thank Greg for taking us through Partner Engagement Manager in this detail. I found it, and I always learn something new when Greg presents. So thank you, Greg, and thank you also to the TrustLink team for your participation and for the great questions. It's good to have an engaged conversation.